Hello again, everyone. Ken Molesina here from the CBSN Dallas-Fort Worth studios, where we are continuing to monitor very closely the trial of Billy Chemirmir. He is the man accused of being a serial killer here in North Texas, accused of killing at least 18 people, according to investigators, but he is on trial for the death of one. Let's get to Andrea Lucia, a reporter who has been covering the case here on day one on this Monday. Andrea, thank you so much for joining us. Go ahead and set the scene for us. What has day one been like so far?
Well, things have been moving really quick. The prosecution gave its opening statement and then jumped straight into testimony. They called 3 witnesses to the stand. All of the testimony so far has focused on March 19th, 2018, the day before Billy Chemirmir was arrested, and an attack on a woman named Mary Bartell that he's been accused of. We heard from the 911 dispatcher that took a call in that case. We heard from the Plano firefighter who was on the scene and responded. We heard from the Plano Police Department officer who went to the hospital and met with her. But the most striking testimony by far has been from Mary Bartell herself. She was 91 years old when she was attacked, and we're hearing from her directly through a video deposition that she gave just a few months after that attack. Bartell actually passed away last year, but because of her age, she was able to give that deposition and recount her memories of what happened to her.
Talk a little bit about that, and certainly something that isn't seen quite often. As you said, I guess everybody knowing that this was going to go to trial, they had her video deposition ready to go in the case of her passing, which of course that's what's happening here. But what did she say, Andrea, in that video that you think stood out to the court?
I mean, she gave this firsthand account of what happened. She remembered hearing this rapping sound on her apartment door. She remembered calling out, "Who is it?" She remembered opening the door and then having a man push his way in. She said she was fixated on these green rubber gloves that he was wearing. And she said, obviously she tried to keep the door closed. She couldn't because he was much stronger than her. She remembered thinking 2 things in that moment. 1, that it was a mistake to open the door, and 2, that her life was in grave danger. She said he told her, "Don't fight, lie on the bed," which she did. And then she said he grabbed a pillow and pushed it into her face hard so she couldn't breathe. She passed out. When she woke up, she started talking about what had happened to her, and she realized that some of her jewelry was missing, including the wedding band and the engagement ring that she'd been wearing when she was attacked. Of course, in cross-examination, it was brought up she didn't really get a good look at his face, but she had a lot of details and a lot of specifics about what had occurred.
Yeah, and I bet that information, some of it probably kind of gruesome even for the people inside to listen to. How about the defense, Andrea? Anything that they have sort of reacted to at all, or have they had a chance to say anything yet?
Yeah, we haven't heard a lot from the defense. They actually opted not to give an opening statement. They did ask a few mostly clarifying questions to some of the witnesses who spoke up. The most that we heard from them was during that sort of cross-examination during the video deposition of Mary Bartell, where they appeared to be questioning her memory. They seemed to emphasize the fact that she didn't get a good look at her attacker, that she didn't hear any kind of accent in his voice when he spoke to her. We haven't heard from Chemirmir himself, but we can only imagine that he will have an accent when he does speak. But they were sort of saying, we're not questioning your account, but we want to make sure we're getting the right person, and really questioning her memory of that. But the prosecution gets first crack at making their case, so we may be hearing more from the defense later on in this trial.
Interesting that you point that out, because I was beginning to wonder if we were going to hear from Chemirmir himself. Word has it that he hasn't really been entirely cooperative with the investigation. So I'm curious, is that your understanding that he will have an opportunity to speak? He will say something?
I mean, certainly he has the opportunity to speak. We haven't had any indication either way if he will. He has just as much right not to speak. It's going to be up to him.
You're right. Before we let you go, Andrea, obviously this is a case that has drawn up a lot of attention, a lot of sort of interest in what is happening there in the courtroom. You are there. Give us an idea of what it's like to actually be there. I'm assuming that the courtroom is packed. Are there families of victims there? Who all is sort of there in the courtroom with you?
So just to be clear, the courtroom itself has COVID precautions in place. So there's not a lot of people, including the media or the victim's family, that are being allowed in the actual courtroom. But we're all here in the courthouse. The victims' families, about 17 different relatives of people who Chemirmir is accused of attacking, are up on the 10th floor in the district attorney's office watching this together. They said they wanted to be together because, they didn't want to be at home watching this by themselves. I just spoke to several of them, and they said that just watching, specifically Mary Bartell speak and give a firsthand account was very emotional for them. They were, of course, thinking of their mothers when they were hearing her. Only 2 people who Chemirmir is accused of attacking survived those attacks. This is one of them, and to hear her give that firsthand account, everybody up there was thinking of their own mother or grandmother, their loved one, thinking that they probably experienced the very same thing. So they have been up there quiet, listening to all of this and shedding a lot of tears as they do.
Yeah, as one would imagine, a very emotional day here on day one. Andrea, any indication right now as to how long this trial might last? Are you expecting that this is going to be sort of a marathon of a trial? I know you said things are moving pretty quickly on day one, but are you thinking this is going to wrap up within a week or so?
Well, I talked to the judge, I think it was last week, and asked her that question. She's expecting 4 days of testimony, and then it's up to the jury. She really did not want this to drag out and get anywhere close to Thanksgiving. And she said when she talked to the attorneys, they thought they could really get their testimony and their questions out in 4 days. And based on the speed at which things are going, that seems likely.
Yeah, it does certainly seem like it's following that kind of a schedule. It is lunchtime right now. The jury is taking their lunch break. We are going to be watching, Andrea, to see what happens when they come back from lunch. But for now, we certainly thank you for your update from inside of the Chemirmir trial. Appreciate you, and I'm sure we'll be talking soon. Andrea, thank you.
Thank you.
That's going to do it for this CBSN Dallas-Fort Worth update. You're going to want to stay tuned to CBSN Dallas-Fort Worth, as well as CBSDFW.com and all of our over-the-air broadcasts for the very latest on the Billy Chemirmir trial. I'm Ken Molestina for CBSN Dallas-Fort Worth. We'll talk soon.